Are you asking yourself if you can get admitted into a PhD program without research experience? If these questions are keeping you up at night, you have come to the right place. Hi, I'm Philippe Barr. I am a former professor and member of admissions committees for PhD programs. And in today's video, I am going to demystify the application process from the standpoint of research experience. We'll dive into what is considered research experience from the perspective of admissions committees, how to assess your research background, and how you can increase your chances of admissions if your research experience is less than optimal. Whether you come from industry, a non-research academic background, or making a career pivot, by the end of this video, you'll have strategies to assess your research profile and enhance your application. So if you're looking to turn your concerns into concrete actions, let's get started. First things first, a lot of information I will be sharing today applies to PhD programs in the US. Although a lot of information I'll be talking about will be applicable to other programs around the world, I highly encourage you to contact each program and make sure that you fulfill all the requirements for a successful application. So why is research experience so important to PhD programs? It's important to remember that taking on a PhD students for a university is very costly because they have to provide you with tuition remission and sometimes a stipend. So they really want to make sure that you're going to be able to be successful in the program so that you will get good grades and especially that you will gain employment post-graduation. Let's admit it, pursuing a PhD and especially finishing a PhD is no walk in the park. Admissions committees really want to know that you will thrive, and they rely on three key elements to make sure that you're a good fit for their program. First of all, they want to see that you're genuinely excited about research and have a real interest in the subject matter. They also want to see that you have a solid grasp of what research is all about and the commitment that it requires. Finally, determination, self-motivation, and stamina, which are crucial for completing a PhD program. That being said, it's also important to take into consideration that research experience is only one among many other factors that admissions committees will be looking at when they look at your application. They'll be looking at your GRE, your GPA, and a series of other factors that I'll be talking about later in the video, so stay tuned. From a research standpoint, there are still a lot of myths floating around the application process, and especially the role that research experience plays in this process. So let's debunk some of these myths. The first myth floating around is that you have to be a fully formed researcher before you even apply to a PhD program. And this is actually not true. Admissions committees, when they look at applications, are looking for potentials. They are not necessarily looking for somebody that's going to be fully formed by the time they get into their PhD program. They know that you'll be taking courses, that you will be exchanging with a lot of professors, that your ideas are going to evolve within the year or two that you'll be taking classes. So really, all they're looking for is evidence of this potential. So if you're considering applying to PhD programs right now, it's okay if you are still a work in progress, and it will be okay if you're not a fully formed researcher by the time you apply. It's all about your potential. Another very common myth is that you need a master's degree to get admitted into a PhD program. In the US, most PhD programs now include a master's degree within the structure of the overall PhD and accept a lot of applicants right out of undergrad. So you do not necessarily need a master's to get admitted. If you do have a master's, though, it is definitely a plus because you'll be able to demonstrate your potential as a researcher through your thesis and through the recommendations that you will get from professors, especially from the person that directed your thesis. But if you are an undergrad, it's definitely not a necessity. You can apply to a PhD program without a master's degree. A third myth is that you need research experience in your target field. And this is actually not true. At this stage of your academic career, the skills you possess are transferable. If you apply to a PhD program and you have, let's say, experience researching literature and you're considering a PhD program in history, the skills that you've acquired conducting research in literature are definitely transferable to history. And when admissions committees will look at your application, they will take that into consideration. And to tell you the truth, having experience in another field can be a huge asset for you as an applicant because you will bring this different perspective to the research that you conduct in your target field. Doctoral programs in general are highly interdisciplinary, and they really welcome somebody who has a different type of experience research-wise, and they like the connections, even if they seem very unlikely. that you can make between two fields. So if you have a master's in one field and you want to transfer to another one, not all is lost. You can apply to your target field, and it's all about highlighting the specificity of the perspective that you will bring to this program. Another prevalent myth is that you need publications by the time you apply. This is not true at all. It is not expected from applicants to have publications before they get admitted into a PhD program. If you have one publication, definitely it will make you stand out. If you don't have a publication and you're stressed with time, the deadlines are coming up soon, I would not waste a lot of time trying to get something published, because ultimately at this stage of your career, it really doesn't matter that much. Assistant professors are often hired without publication. So publication should not be one of your worries. You'll have plenty of time to be worried about that, so you can move on with the applications without any worries. A lot of you might wonder if it's possible to get admitted into a PhD program without any research experience. The answer to that is no. But don't panic. What research experience means for admissions committees might surprise you. You might have much more experience than you think. So let's review what is considered research background in the eyes of admissions committees. First of all, research experience can include anything that you've done in an academic setting. It can be something really substantial, like an honors thesis that you've conducted with a professor, but it can also include any type of work you've done outside of the classroom. If you worked in a lab, it also counts. You can also include any type of research you've conducted in specific classes. If you've done a research paper for a class or literature review, you can often use this as evidence of your experience with research. In other words, in an academic context, if you've collected data, you've analyzed it, and you've presented this analysis, whether in writing or orally in front of other people, this counts as research. Research experience also includes research outside of the classroom and beyond the university. If you've worked on a research project as part of your internship, that counts. If you have worked on specific research projects in your line of work, in a group or alone, and you've actually presented the results of this research, this can also count as research experience. If you've volunteered and it involved collecting data, analyzing it, and presenting it to others, this also counts. Independent investigations as well can count. Being an autodidact is well seen in academia. So if you worked on research projects alone, unsupervised, and you have evidence of the research that you've conducted, you can definitely use that. Finally, anything that you've published, it doesn't necessarily mean an article in a peer-reviewed journal. It could be a blog post. It could be something that you've published in your line of work. Sometimes there's internal white papers that are distributed within an organization. You can use that as evidence of research, and it counts as research background. So as you can see, research can be viewed in a broader scale than what people think. It's all about how you're going to present this experience to admissions committees and show how these skills are transferable to a PhD program. So what do you do if you have zero research experience? You have none of that and you still want to pursue a PhD? What can you potentially do? If you are a year and a half from deadlines and you have a lot of time on your hand, there's a lot of things that you can do to gain this research experience. First, you can volunteer on ongoing research projects to get that hands-on experience. You can reach out to professors or researchers that are conducting research in alignment with what you'd like to do and see if you can help them out. It can be collecting data or even doing administrative tasks. Second, you can start your own research project. So you can use the time between now and the deadlines to become familiar with current trends in research on this specific topic, the literature associated with that topic, and all of these elements you can use in your statement of purpose to demonstrate that you are knowledgeable in the field and make a strong case for you to get admitted into their program. Third, you can also take online courses with a focus on research, signing up for classes that will provide both a theoretical understanding and a practical understanding of the various methods in conducting research. While these experiences are not traditional per se, they provide concrete ways for you to build up your research skills and demonstrate that you are qualified to gain admission into a PhD program. If you are really close to deadlines, well, then it might be a bit more difficult for you to take on such large projects. But one thing that a lot of people forget is that your statement of purpose is also a great way to concretely demonstrate your skills in the way that you will present your interests, in the way that you will define the questions that you're interested in exploring, in the way, again, that you will demonstrate your familiarity with current research, etc., etc. Your statement of purpose as is considered by admissions committees as evidence of your potentials. If you only have a few months before the application deadline, I highly encourage you to start working on your statement of purpose. Obviously, this is not something that can be done in a few hours, but you can definitely use this piece of your application to show that you have what it takes to be successful. Another element that can carry a lot of weight in your applications are going to be the letters of recommendations. Having the right type of recommendation that highlights your skills in a deep and rigorous way that is clearly understandable to admissions committees can really make up for evidence lacking in your resume, etc., etc. As you approach your recommenders, it's really important to, if you can, to guide them in highlighting the skills associated with research like critical thinking abilities, analytical skills, ability to work on your own, ability to synthesize a lot of information. All these elements, if they are clearly highlighted in your letters of recommendation, can really help to bolster your research background. Another important component is your resume. The resume should not just be a description of what you've done, but it could be a great way for you to also shed light on the qualities and the skills you possess that could be relevant to your target program. As I've mentioned earlier, a lot of PhD programs are not requiring a master's degree, and your GPA can be used as evidence of your academic skills. So if you have a high GPA and your application is well constructed and you present yourself in the right light, you can definitely leverage this high GPA to offset a lack of research experience. Same could be said about the GRE. I know that everybody wants to avoid taking the GRE, but if you are in a position where your research background is limited, taking the GRE is a great way to demonstrate your academic potential at this very moment in time. By the way, if you're interested to learn more about the GRE and the role it plays in applications in general, I invite you to take a look at one of my previous videos where I get deeper into how to approach the GRE and how you can leverage the score as you approach applications for PhD programs. Lastly, it's important to also not underestimate the value of soft skills such as communication skills, teamwork, and adaptability. These are all elements that are really useful in the context of PhD programs. In your CV, in your letters of recommendation, and even in your statement of purpose, if you have the ability to highlight that you possess these skills, it's a great way to again make a strong case for yourself and make up for a lack of research experience. So that's it, folks. I hope that this video was informative and provide you with all the information you need as you move forward with your PhD applications. I know that for many of you, this is a very stressful moment in your life. A lot of people feel that they are inadequate as they contemplate these programs. They really often seem out of reach. But if you approach your application in a strategic way and you take a real in-depth assessment of all the skills and qualities that you possess, it is possible for you to position yourself and get admitted into programs. Keep in mind that nobody's perfect, everybody has flaws. And as a former professor, an admissions consultant, and having read myself a lot of applications, there is no wrong or right profile. It's all about capitalizing on what makes you stand out. And in my opinion, it's all about being strategic and realistic about your goals. And it's really possible for pretty much everybody to gain admission into their target programs. So on that note, if you want more information about anything related to PhD applications, feel free to follow me, subscribe. I will be providing a lot more videos to help you go through the application process without losing all your hair. Again, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.